Have you ever taken a photo that felt too busy, like you tried to capture everything at once and ended up with nothing special? That's one of the most common issues I see from new photographers, the lack of a clear subject. You and I can see depth and ignore distractions, but cameras flatten the foreground and background so everything competes for attention. This video is going to help you fix that, so stick with me as we simplify your scenes, make your subject stand out and create images you're proud of. So why do many of us end up with cluttered photos? It's not because we don't have an eye for a good picture, it's because when we're starting out, we can understandably get excited and want to include everything that catches our eye. Most people don't give enough attention to the subject, so therefore the focal point competes with other elements. If the subject isn't obvious, the photo becomes mediocre. So just before you press the shutter, take a second to remove anything distracting, and that simple 1 second check can transform a snapshot into a stronger photo. And if this is something you're into, be sure to grab my ebook after the video, totally free when you sign up to my monthly newsletter. Oh, and if you're able to stay until the end, I've got something else that may well be of interest to you. Another reason why photographs can look cluttered is that cameras don't separate out all the various elements like our eyes do. Our brains can prioritize a person in a crowd and ignore all the signs, wires, and whatever else is around them. A camera, however, compresses everything into a flat, two-dimensional plane, so that busy background suddenly competes for attention. That's why a subject that looks clear to you in real life can blend into the chaos in a photo. And then, of course, there's the fear of missing out. This sometimes makes beginners reluctant to move closer. They shoot wider than they actually need, including irrelevant objects, and think cropping later will feel like cheating. But actually, cropping is a skill. Zooming in or physically moving closer simplifies your photo and gives the subject more prominence. And it makes it more obvious where you want the viewer to look. So let's have a look at some ideas to help build clean compositions. These aren't rules, but they are tried and tested guidelines that do work really well. So before you press the shutter button, ask yourself, what is this photo about? Then try to identify a single subject or story and resist that urge to photograph everything at once. For example, if you're at a family gathering, choose one person or a small group and let them be the star of that shot. If other people or objects are important, make them the subject of separate pictures. By being intentional and selective, you give your viewer a clear anchor in the scene with a definitive subject. Clutter is the enemy of your subject. Before you take a shot, scan the edges of the frame for distractions like lampposts, rubbish, random strangers, or even bright colours that don't maybe belong. Our eyes are really good at tuning out these distractions in real life, but in photos they compete for attention. So whenever possible, move your subject or yourself to find a simple background like a plain wall, open sky, or a shadowed area, so then nothing steals the limelight. Also take a second to physically remove small distractions or adjust your angle to hide them. Empty space isn't wasted space. It actually draws more attention to your subject. Leaving breathing room around your subject creates a feeling of calm and minimalism and gives the eye a place to rest. Try placing your subject on one side of the frame and having a large area of a sky, a wall, or maybe water occupy the rest. This negative space not only highlights the subject, but can also convey moods like serenity, loneliness, or vastness. Not only that, magazine editors will love you. It gives them plenty of room for copy. If your subject gets lost in the scene, move closer or zoom in. Filling the frame with the subject immediately gives it more weight. You can do this in two ways. Either use your feet to physically step closer, zoom in with your feet if you like, or use a longer focal length. Both options eliminate background noise and make sure your subject gets the viewer's undivided attention. Don't be afraid to crop a little in post-production either. It's a legitimate tool to simplify your image. Depth of field can be your best friend when separating subjects from the background. By using a wide aperture, a small f number like f1.8 or f2.8, you can throw the background out of focus so nothing competes with the main subject. If you're not shooting in manual mode yet, use aperture priority, then dial in the low f number and focus carefully on your subject's eyes. The resulting blur or bokeh makes your subject pop. If you're shooting portraits, ask your subject to step away from the background because our extra distance amplifies that blurred effect. Light, colour and contrast are very powerful tools. Always try to position your subject in the best light. For example, turn them towards a window or use a portable light to highlight them while letting the background fall into shadow. Choose or create colour contrast by putting your subject against a background of a complementary colour. Think of a yellow t-shirt against a blue wall, for example. And don't forget to add a bit of contrast in post-production, as well as adding a touch of sharpness and clarity to your subject while keeping the background softer. It all helps to guide the viewer's eye. The rule of thirds divides the frame into 9 equal segments. Placing your subject on one of the intersection points adds balance and interest. It's more engaging than always centering everything. And many cameras, and definitely iPhones, allow you to overlay a grid on your screen. So I'm going to turn it on and experiment. And if you want a deeper dive into composition techniques, I'll link my video on it in the description for you to check out later. And I know there are some photographers that dismiss the rule of thirds as being overused, and maybe it is, but it's tried and tested and it works. And remember, they're not really rules. You can break these guidelines once you understand them. They're a starting point, not handcuffs. Okay, enough theory. Let's have a look at these concepts in action. Here's a busy street corner where there's plenty of clutter, but there's definitely a cleaner composition to be found. First, let's look at the wide shot that includes everything. See how the no entry sign, people in the street and lampposts etc. all compete for attention? It's okay as a street scene maybe, but what's it really about? So let's choose our subject, the fruit stall and the owner. So how about zooming in and physically stepping closer until he and the customer fills about a third of the frame. Then pay attention to the background and choose the composition. Shooting in manual mode with an aperture of f4 to give an appropriate depth of field, placing them on the rule of thirds intersection, and with a bit of patience we get our shot. So take a look at the difference. Now it's clear what the subject is and all the chaos is gone. To me, it's a much better shot. So let's try another example. Photographing someone in front of a mural. The mural is colourful and pretty interesting, but also quite busy. With this first shot, the subject kind of blends in too much and the mural is competing for attention, if that makes sense. To fix it, get them to step forward in order to create distance away from the mural. Then using f1.8 and focusing on their eyes, the mural now becomes a soft splash of colour behind them. Now they are clearly the main subject of the photo, and it's a far more pleasing look. And if you can't move your subject, move yourself. Kneel down, shoot upward, or use objects to frame them. Different viewpoints can add interest and can help you exclude distractions. Now let's have a look at some variations you can try to give you some different options. Remember, photography is both art and experimentation, and experimentation is where the fun really starts. When you're shooting portraits, maybe try placing your subject on one side of the frame and leave the other side empty. This negative space not only emphasizes the subject, but can also convey a certain mood, such as calmness, loneliness, or scale. Use complementary colours to draw attention. Try putting your subject in a brightly coloured outfit against a contrasting background. Or perhaps edit your image to desaturate everything except the subject's colour, which is a bit 1990s, but it can still be effective. And how about using natural frames such as archways, windows, or tree branches to guide the viewer's eye? This technique helps highlight the subject and definitely adds depth to the image. Okay, now that you know how to declutter an image, why not contradict that and try embracing it too? Sometimes clutter helps tell the story. A messy workshop, a bustling market, or a crowded dance floor can convey energy and atmosphere. The trick is still to choose a clear subject and make it stand out with light, contrast, or selective focus. Don't let everything be pin sharp though. Use depth of field, lighting, or cropping to give your subject priority. Think of it like a rock band. The lead singer gets the spotlight, but the noise from the crowd makes the performance come alive. The subject can be sharp, while the surrounding clutter is softer or darker. Why not give it a try? You might find that sometimes embracing the chaos actually adds real character to your photos. So let's recap what we've covered today. Cluttered compositions happen because beginners include too much and assume the eye will know where to look. Cameras flatten the scene, so busy backgrounds swallow your subject. To fix it, remember these simple guidelines. Choose a clear subject and be selective. Exclude clutter and simplify your background. Use negative space and minimalism. Get closer or zoom in. Cropping is not cheating. Use a shallow depth of field to blur distractions. Play with light, colour and contrast. Compose using the rule of thirds and experiment with framing and angles. And of course, sometimes it's okay to embrace the clutter, as long as your subject is clear. Photography is a journey. The more you practice, the more intuitive it becomes. Every time you shoot, ask yourself, what's my subject? Then make it stand out. Now, if you're still with me, you'd obviously serious about your photography. So if you'd like to join our free group of like-minded beginner and intermediate photographers over on School to learn, connect and grow, I've included the link to the Photography Foundation community in the description for you. So why not check it out? We'd love to see you over there. And if this video helped, hit that like button so more photographers can find it. Subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss any upcoming tutorials. And why not watch this one next? And drop me a comment below to tell me the biggest composition tip that has helped you recently. I read and respond to everyone. Don't forget your copy of the ebook, and as always, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.